Hey everyone, so I just saw Mulan 3, or Kubo and the Two Strings.
Have you seen this crest before?
Of course.
This is a miracle. I have found the son of my master. Your quest is now my quest too.
This movie has been recently gathering quite a bit of praise. I mean, it has an insanely high score on Flickster, IMDb, Metacritic, all the sites that people look at to see how a movie is reviewed. And while I personally may not trust any of these sites, it is kind of crazy to see the amount of praise this movie is getting from YouTube movie critics and pretty much everybody. So I went into this with quite high expectations, and what I got out of it was a very mediocre experience. After watching this movie, it just isn't that great. But to start out, let's talk about what's good about this movie. What's good about this movie is the cast. The only one that I felt wasn't that great was Charlize Theron as the monkey. I thought her performance was very dull and kind of one note. It was very robotic at times, just kind of like, Kubo, don't do that. You get 3 questions. That's your first. Haha, jokes, I have them. Her performance wasn't that great, I felt, but she was really the only one that was weak in this movie, and weak with air quotes. The kid who played Kubo was great, who I guess is a Game of Thrones actor. Matthew McBeetleman was good as Beetleman. I thought he worked pretty well as comedy relief. He was kind of obnoxious at times, and I'll get more into that later. But the standout for me was Ralph Fiennes and Rooney Mara, surprisingly. Ralph Fiennes as the villain of the movie was freaking awesome. I loved every scene that he was in. Any scene that he was in this movie, he was just having a blast. And it was really fun to watch, or listen to, I guess. And then Rooney Mara as the creepiest twins ever put to screen. She was great. She was really great. A lot of times I feel like she's not that good of an actress. Sometimes she can be very, like I said with Charlize Theron, she can be very robotic, even though it's kind of weird to say that about Theron because she's usually great. Rooney Mara was awesome, and her twins' performance was really freaking creepy, and I really enjoyed it, actually. I thought she was excellent in this movie. And of course, the visuals. This movie is beautiful. Like, holy cow, I can't overstate how good this movie looks. It's a mix of CG and stop motion. Like, the stop motion is the close stuff to the camera, so the streets, the people, all of that is stop motion. And then the backgrounds, I believe, are all CG. It showed a scene at the end of the film with a big skeleton man, and everything behind him was a green screen. So my guess is that they built basic sets, basic puppets, put those in front of the camera, did stop motion with that, and then just digitally added in environments later. And that was great, actually. Sometimes it kind of stands out. There's a couple moments when they use CG close to the camera, and that was kind of obvious. But other than that, it looks amazing. This movie is probably the best looking animated film so far this year. It's not the best, but it's the best looking for sure. And I have no doubt that it will be in contention for an Oscar at the end of the year. That being said, this movie really fell flat for me, and mainly because it's so freaking lazy. Ugh. I don't think I have seen a more lazily put together movie from Laika yet, and I hope that I don't see another one like this. Their first film, Coraline, was great. Their second film, Paranorman, was less great, but still okay. And then Box Trolls was pretty not good. It was better than this film, but it wasn't great either. It was pretty slightly above average, I'd say. But this was their first one that kind of dipped below a good rating, honestly. I think this film is the first one from Laika that I don't think I can recommend. Like, on a personal level, I don't think I can recommend this movie to people that are fans of Laika or fans of animated film. They'll really enjoy it. But for me personally, this isn't one I can recommend. And that has a lot to do with the fact that it doesn't know what it is. The film pretends like it's a kid's movie. It's advertised as a kid's movie, but it's not. It's very, very dark. But the thing with that is it's not a movie for adults either. There's one scene in particular where they're fighting Big Skeleton Man that I mentioned earlier, and the tone is all over the place. At first, you know, he walks up on this, Beetle Man walks up on a hand and pulls the sword out, and he's like, haha, and then it kind of jiggles and he jumps off all scared. and then these bones fly up, and Big Skeleton Man like looks at them, and his eyes turn on, and right at that moment, everyone's like, "Oh boy!" And then big, scary, contrived action music comes in, and it's like do 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 do, but except like Asian, so it's like bing 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 bing. But anyway, it started doing that, and then there's this. They started having an action scene, and they were throwing jokes in the middle of it. So it was a very weird tone, just off and on throughout this movie. It was like, whoa, here's an action scene, and it's dark and scary, but here's some jokes. And Beetle Man was the biggest perpetrator of these jokes. He was just kind of like flinging them at the wall, trying to hope one would stick, but hardly any of them did for me, because they just were so out of place. Like, it was this big action scene with a freaking gigantic skeleton with, like, metal for legs or body or something. I don't even know. They were, like, breaking swords over it somehow. Unless they're, like, made of glass. I don't even freaking know. But it's just this big skeleton. And it was, like, action music. And then Beetle Man was like, oh, foot! And a foot came and tried to squish him. Like, it didn't know what kind of tone it wanted. It didn't know if it was a kid's movie. It didn't know if it was a movie for adults. So it just tried to do both at the same time. And it failed for me. There's so many other scenes like that just didn't work. When you have something like this happening where it doesn't exactly know what it wants to be, you get pacing issues. Again, it mainly has to do with that it doesn't have a good tone. So it's kind of off and on and off and on. Some are boring scenes that just are talking. Others are like these action scenes that are fun, but then become gritty and dark. So it's just it's a pacing catastrophe, this movie. It doesn't know, it just is all over the place. Not only is that a tone problem, but that's a problem with the fact that the movie doesn't know how to make a transition, which was crazy to me. At the beginning of the film, there's a moment when Kubo's mom is like running towards the ants like this, and her hands are all glowy, and then the ants run at her like that, and then as like right as they're about to hit, it just like explodes in white screen, and then cuts to a new scene, and then that scene, Kubo gets on a monkey and rides off, and then it just like turns white again, and then it cuts to them in like a front angle, and they're making a joke. And I was like, whoa, it's just jarring. There's so many transitions like that were just jarring. It didn't know how to transition smoothly into a scene, so it just kind of pretended to. Like, there's a scene where Monkey jumps at the camera and says something like, it made me strong, and then cuts the camera, and it just does that white screen, blah, and then new scene. It just doesn't know how to transition, and it was kind of bizarre. I don't get how they didn't know how to just cut to a new scene. It was kind of crazy. What was even weirder is that it seemed like it didn't want to do establishing shots, and that was mainly the issue with not being able to transition properly. There's a couple good establishing shots that transition very smoothly, but for the most part, it didn't want to do those for whatever reason. Like, there's so many scenes that it was just, you know, white screen and then boom, new scene, like, and we have no idea where they are. All of a sudden, they're just kind of there, and it was like, whoa, okay. Like I said in the Winter Wonderland scene, when it cuts to a front angle of Kubo and Monkey, and they're making a joke about a whale, but we don't see the whale for like another 30 seconds, so we have no clue where they are. We have no clue what they're looking at, and they're just making a joke about how something stinks. Not only are these all very prominent issues, but my biggest issue with the film is that it's so predictable. Like, in the first 10 minutes of this movie, it tells you exactly what's going to happen for the rest of the movie. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. What happens is that Kubo walks down to this town, and he's dinking around with some papers and making this origami show where this dude bro is fighting these bad guys to get armor. And I was like, oh boy. This is the whole movie, isn't it? After that scene ends, and they're like, you don't have a good ending. And he's like, I'm not good at doing endings. And he runs back to his mom because it's almost dark, and apparently he can't go out after night, which is established in this very next scene when the mom just like takes a dump of exposition all over our main character. It was hot, but uncomfortable. Before this scene though, what's crazy is that the mom in this movie was terrible, honestly. I did not feel for her at all, and that had mainly to do with the fact that they didn't know what to do with her, like, in any way. The first scene of the movie is this cool action scene, and the mom is like breaking waves with a guitar, and then she falls and hits her head in the water. And then the next scene is like 15 years later, or 10 years later, or however long, it doesn't say, I don't think. And then Kubo is like tending to her. Like, she can't get out of bed, so he gets her out of bed, and she can't feed herself, so he feeds her. And then he like walks her to the edge of the cave where she stares at the sun until he goes to the town and comes back, and she's still just sitting there. And then he's like, okay, Mom, time for bed. And then he gets her into the cave, and it like fades to black kind of thing, like new scene. And then the next scene, the mom is running around like crazy, telling a story, like sprinting around the cave, like dancing and stuff. And I was like, whoa, what? I was like, whoa, she's fine, what the heck? And she's telling him the same story that he was telling the villagers, but a different part of it, I guess, like the end. And I can't even remember what she was saying. It was stupid, but she's like, remember in your story that your main character guy, Harambe, is your dad, and the Moon King guy that he has to fight is your grandfather. And I was like, they just ruined the movie. Oh, they just ruined the movie. It was at that point that I realized that not only was the scene in that village with all the origami the entire movie, but I realized that this very next scene ruins the ending. Like, seriously, it ruins the ending. And it plays it off like it's not ruining the ending, but it totally is, because there is no dramatic tension anymore. And that's because it showed us the movie, and then it said, hey, this kid's dad is the guy in the story. And then his grandfather is the other guy, the bad guy in the story. And while it may not seem like much on the surface, if you haven't watched a lot of movies, but when I saw that, I realized that they robbed themselves of the best twist ending they could have possibly had. Because in the end, their twist is that Beetle Man, oh, spoilers, Beetle Man is his dad. Monkey guy girl is his mom, somehow. Like, I'm pretty sure we saw her attack the twins, and then the monkey was in the next scene, and she's like, your mom brought me to life, but it was his mom? Like, I have no clue how that happened. Was she like fighting them, and she's like, okay, I gotta hold them off, now I can go into the monkey, and she like passed out while she was fighting them. They're like, I'm gonna kill you, and she's just like, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. And they kick her, and they're like, hey, are you okay? Well, guess our job's done. And they just like walk away. It was weird, like, I didn't get it. She was clearly fighting somebody else. And I guess that's why they faded to white before anything happened, because it doesn't make any sense that she would be the monkey. But as soon as Beetle Man came on screen in the movie, it was obvious that it was his dad, because they already freaking ruined it. They already said that his dad was the guy in the story. And then Beetle Man comes on screen and he's like, I was a samurai, and your robes that you have on were my cult. And I was like, oh, that's his dad. And it was. It's not a twist ending if you know what's happening. Which is why, if they didn't ruin the fact that it was his dad and his grandfather in the story, it would have been an amazing twist. Like, still would have been kind of stupid because the monkey's the mom, like, come on. But at least you wouldn't have seen that coming. Plus, you would realize that you'd have to fight his grandfather and everything would feel much more, like, tense, you know? Because he just saw his parents die and you didn't see it coming. And you're like, oh, crap, now he has to fight his grandfather. What's he going to do? Like, is he going to kill him? Like, geez. And it would have been great. It robs itself of the only twist ending that would have been good 5 minutes in the movie, robs itself. It robs itself of everything in the first 5 minutes of the movie. It's so predictable, and it ruins any dramatic tension. It ruins it. Like, if they had not said that, and just tiny rewrites in the script to take out parts where it says, like, where your family, your grandfather's coming, all that stuff, movie would have been fine. It would have been at least good, I think. But, you know, it's just speculation because we got this movie that's not. But another thing that bothered me was that it just was executed very sloppily. And I'm not referring to how it can't transition or it doesn't have good tone or it's very predictable. But a lot of the scenes afterwards are just sloppy. Like, there's a scene near the end when Kubo is fighting his ants with his, right before Monkey and Harambe Beetle Man get killed. And he takes his guitar and he's like angry and his hands start glowing blue like his mom's, and he strums it so hard that he breaks the strings. And I laughed out loud because it was stupid. and of course, in the vein of this movie, when he does that, this big bubble comes out and then it just fades to white. And you don't see his parents after this scene. You don't see the twins after this scene. They just kind of disappear. It's not clear if they die. It's not clear if they got away. He just kind of breaks his guitar and it's the next scene. A couple scenes later, he strums his guitar so hard again, he breaks the other string off, and then he restrings it with hair. Oh no, more specifically, he restrings it with memories. Like, someone tell me that's not the stupidest thing ever, please. And he started playing it with the hair while he was fighting his grandpa, which was a good scene because Ralph Fiennes was in it. But, I mean, it was really stupid. And then he plays the hair so hard that it turns a grandpa into a good guy. Like, how? I'm seriously asking. I don't know why that happened. Why couldn't they just kill him in a flash of light like they have the whole movie? Nope, they had to make him a good guy because the movie is about family bonding and individuality and a dark tone, but a kid-friendly tone. Kubo. There's so many scenes like this that are just lazy. It doesn't know what to do, so it just makes things up as it goes along. And everything feels so convenient and wacky and tonally everywhere. It's all predictable. It's all just lazy. And that's the biggest problem with this movie, is that it's boring and lazy. And it just ruins a potentially great story within 10 minutes. Like, after that 10 minutes, I was so checked out of the movie, I didn't know what to do with myself. Like, I was like, oh, they ruined it. And I kept watching, and then it just kept getting worse with every scene. And I really don't know what to say, because I was looking forward to this. It has a lot of great reviews. It looks great. It has an excellent cast. How did this happen? In the end, I think I'd give this a partial recommendation. If you like animation, if you like Laika, then you'll love this movie for sure. But if you want to see a movie that is smart, or you want to see a movie that you can show your kids, this is not it. This movie doesn't know what it is. It's all over the place. It's very lazy. It's just poorly written all around. And all of its characters are very two-dimensional. You know, you got the wacky sidekicks, the comic relief, the one that's too hardcore for her own good, and then like the main character. It's just very two-dimensional. This whole movie is very two-dimensional. So in the end, I think I would give this movie a 5 out of 10. It's very mediocre. It is nice to see something quote-unquote original. I said quote-unquote and then I did quotes. That's stupid. But it is nice to see something original for a change, even if it isn't that amazing. So go support it. Go support originality, and hopefully we can send a message with our wallets to Hollywood that we don't want to see stupid, nonsense, dumb sequel reboots anymore. We want to see stuff that's original and well written, even if this one isn't really that well written. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, comment down below, and we can start up a little conversation about the movie if you want. I'm always game. So I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.